everybody. Welcome to the Home Tour Podcast.
Yeah.
We are here with
Payton.
Yay!
Yay.
It's just the two of us today.
Yep.
We're going to talk about something really important, which is going to be rent versus buying.
Yep.
Payton, you want to start and tell us a little bit about how you started before purchasing your first home?
Yeah. So it's kind of always the great debate, right? Of who can do what and what is the best choice to make. When we first got married, we could not purchase. That was not an option for us. So we rented, and we were renting in the Noonan area, and we loved our first little rental. It was a great option for us. This was pre-kids. It was just the two of us. But then circumstances changed, and we bought our first house in 2010. So this was after the market crash and all the craziness. And this is when the government was handing out money. They were like, please buy a house. We're trying to rebuild the economy. So they actually gave us $8,000 to buy a house.
Oh,
So we took that. And so that was how we were able to move from renting into our first home. But honestly, then it wasn't much of a price difference renting versus buying. Whereas now, that's more of what people are dealing with, is a big price difference between those two options. But then we sold that house, our first starter home, and moved, and now we're in our what is going to be our forever home, because we can't afford anything else now. But, renting and buying, I get a lot of clients who, if they're moving from out of state and they're new to our area, they really want an opportunity to kind of get to know the area first. And so they would like or prefer to rent while they get to know, the golf carts
right.
and everything, and where things are, and if, what
Mm-hmm.
schools they really want to be in and that kind of thing. But then I also have clients that are just like, nope, we did the research, we know we want to buy, this is where we want to do it. So it honestly just depends on what you're able to do and what makes the most sense for your family. I will say in our area, renting is more expensive than purchasing. It just is.
Yep.
The numbers, the math doesn't lie. So, if you're in a position to pay more money to rent to be able to get to know an area, then absolutely, by all means, do that. But renting is few and far between in our area for sure. There are not very many options for that. But in other areas outside of Peachtree City, there are much more options to choose from. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I kind of had the same story. I was renting in New York from 2008 to 2004. And I mean, rent in New York is really, it's not cheap.
Yikes. Yeah.
What you get is a really small spot, and then it's a crash pad.
Mm-hmm.
Just go there, sleep, go back to work,
Yep.
party, and then sleep, and then go back to work.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Georgia. We rented for 13 months. We really didn't know where we were going to settle. We kind of liked it a little bit, and we got pregnant, and then we're like, okay, I'm sorry, my wife got pregnant. She did all the
Yes,
work.
she did.
I'm not taking credit for that at all. And then we found Noonan. I was working in Noonan already, but we kind of started looking more into Noonan. I was just like going straight to work, jumping 85, go back to my apartment.
Yep.
And explore a little bit. And then we found out that actually purchasing was going to be cheaper than renting.
Mm.
And we're like, well, yeah, but what about all the other things, maintenance and the things that you have to take over? I mean, yes, that kind of scares us a little bit at the beginning, but I mean, it's just part of being an adult.
Yeah.
And we ended up buying, and probably the best decision ever, because one thing that that you actually don't learn in school is one of the most steadiest investments, at least in the past 10 years, is owning real estate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a forced savings account. You're looking into renting, and then somebody else has a forced savings account.
Yep.
Not you.
Yep.
And it was just like, it was incredible. We bought in 2015, sold it in 2021, and we doubled our money.
Mm.
And we're like, oh my gosh, like in 5 years, I couldn't dream of me saving that on my own by
Right.
just renting. But I was saving on the side, maybe $200 a month or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly we sell, and we have $150,000 in our bank account.
Yep.
And I'm like, how did that happen?
Unreal.
Owning. and that's it. And right now, I mean, the situation just, houses are so expensive,
Mhm.
and then interest rate is so high that mortgages are actually, pretty high as well. But what the market is doing at the same time is that you have to live somewhere. So I'm going to
Right.
raise my rent too
Right.
because I want to make money.
Yes.
So we see a lot of renters that are turning into, curious about buying
Mhm.
just because the rent is going higher and higher and
Yep.
higher. I remember when I was looking at apartments in Union, one bedroom apartment was $640, and it had a pool, it had a gym, it had an office. I mean, it was like the dream.
Right?
And moving from New York, where you were lucky if your bell worked, you know,
Right.
your doorbell.
Right. Right.
So it was great. And nowadays, I mean, my mortgage right now is less than the rent of a two-bedroom apartment,
Mm. Mm.
and I have plenty of equity in my house.
Right.
I
And I
mean.
think that's the big point that a lot of people don't necessarily take into consideration when they're really having this debate is I think a lot for our generation of that elder millennial early 40s kind of time frame is that when you're talking to somebody who is in our age group who's talking about like their net worth, I would
Mhm.
venture to say that the majority of their net worth is tied up in the equity that they have in their home. I know that
Mhm.
that's the reality that we're living in,
Yep.
but and a lot of people don't have a net worth at all, or they have a negative net worth because they either don't own or, they sold the house during a certain situation and, whatever. But the real estate aspect of this is why we're in the financial position that we're in because we wouldn't have a positive net worth at this point as a family if we didn't have the equity in our house that we do.
Mhm.
So, you can make the debate all day about, well, yeah, it might be cheaper, air quotes, in the long run to rent because you don't have to deal with replacing HVAC units or roofs or, gutters or whatever the house maintenance side of things that landlords might cover for you. But
Mhm.
also, are you going to be in a position to have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity in your bank account in the next 10 years?
Mhm.
Unless you come into a lot of money and, or you won the lottery, I don't know how a renter could make that same net worth jump without owning.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's harder,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Not impossible. I'm not saying that
no.
somebody out there is renting and has $1 million in the bank,
Mhm.
but it's definitely a little bit harder.
Yeah. And in our area, just it makes me sick when people are like, "Oh, well, we just want to rent right now and we just need like, a 4-bed, 2-bath house. Like we don't need anything crazy. We just need, we just have 3 kids and just just need a basic house. We don't need anything
Mhm.
extravagant." But then it's 3 grand a month to rent
Yeah.
that. And I'm like, ooh. And people who are
Hmm.
moving from other areas, maybe that might not feel like such a shock to them. It hurts me. It hurts
Oh
me
yeah,
because
absolutely.
that's crazy money to me. Especially when I'm taking into consideration that when we bought our first house, our mortgage was like 895. Like, now this was a different time. But
Yeah.
we were able to buy a brand new construction home for $140,000 in Noonan. Like that you can't do that anymore. But,
Mm-mm.
our mortgage was like 800, almost $900. That is also unheard of at this point unless you have a ton of money that you can put down. But it's like a kick in the gut when people are like, "Oh yeah, well, I'll pay 3,500." I was looking at rentals yesterday for one of my clients, and a 5-bedroom, 5-bath house on a full basement in our area was being rented for $5,800 a month. And I
Mm.
literally was like, "Are does this come with a servant? Like, does this come with someone who's going to like
Right.
wash and dry and fold all of my clothes and put it away? Like, I don't understand. Nothing special. House was not anything extravagant. Didn't have a pool or anything like that. No amenities. Just 5-bed house. Like, and I was like, I cannot. And I had to get off the computer because it just makes me sick.
Oh
So,
yeah.
I think it's just such a personal decision, and I do know that there's a lot of people out there who just can't even get in the boat of being able to afford to buy because you need to have the assistance or you need to have,
Mhm.
the down payment or the closing costs and all those things, which we've talked about in previous episodes about how, that's kind of our job to help
Right.
alleviate some of that for you, but that,
Mhm.
gone are the days of you just showing up and not having any financial responsibility whatsoever. Very rarely
Yeah.
are we either of us dealing with clients who can truly buy a house with zero money down. But, if we're able to, we always want to assist in any way we can, whether that's me helping with the negotiation process and getting you closing costs, if that's being able to use those funds to buy down your rate so that you're saving some money, however we can do that. But I know a lot of people who just can't. They just can't. And renting is the only option they have. And for that, I don't know that there is an answer because I feel like it's very generational because you'll have people who are older than us and their answer is, "Well, just work harder. Stop going to Starbucks or stop, spending money on unnecessary things, stop going out to eat, stop door dashing." But in reality, we're talking about thousands of dollars a month, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
A Starbucks trip or a DoorDash thing here and there really aren't the problem. But when we're also talking about, because now we can start talking about like people aren't paid fairly, and interest rates are crazy, and money and
Mhm.
everything, the math isn't mathing on
Mhm.
a huge level for a lot of people. And for those people, I feel like my answer is always just hold on, just keep doing what you need to do for your family right now. And if and when things start to change, then it's our job to kind of step in and say, hey, things look a little bit better now. How do you feel about reconsidering this?
Right.
And we've talked about this before, that I'm very much stay in your lane. Like, I am not going to sit here and talk to you about numbers. The numbers is Christian's job. But, if I start to hear from Christian or my other lender partners or whoever, or Megan, that, interest rates are starting to come down some, yeah, I am going to make sure that I reach out to some people and say, hey, interest rates are starting to make their way down. I'm seeing in the market that things are becoming a little bit easier to negotiate. Is now a time that you want to start reconsidering this
Right.
option? But I don't know. What do you see on your end?
On my end, I see a lot more people applying and that are making at least 80% or less of the average income in every area. And I believe it's because, I mean, the very first reason is because they say my rent is going up next month, $300 a month.
Mhm.
So how much are you paying right now? I'm paying 1,200. Then it goes to 1,500.
Mhm.
Great. Now I know that this is going to be something that is going to exhaust most of your income. It's
Right.
going to use most of your income. So we know that we need to find something. But guess what? You're living in Sharpsburg. Most likely, you're not going to find a mortgage for $1,200
No.
in Sharpsburg.
No.
All right. So maybe that advice of working a little bit more or spending less money in Starbucks is not just that. Maybe we should move to Luthersville.
Mhm.
Maybe we can find something there. But guess what? It's half an hour more of commuting, but it's going to bring you financial stability. You're going to
Right.
build a generational wealth
Right.
once you make the first move, because you're never going to get what you want without sacrifice.
Right.
I mean, you have a great job, you have down payment, but in order for you to have a great job and have a great down payment, you sacrifice your time before you
Mhm.
went to school, you studied, you got a great job, you're good at what you do.
Yep.
In this case, everybody can sacrifice something, but let's just not get stuck into that idea that I cannot buy right now. My rent is going high, and I'm gonna get stuck into renting. Let's talk to a loan officer. Let's make a plan,
Mhm.
and let's talk to your agent, because your agent is going to be like, okay, I mean, you're not going to live in Pitcher City for fifteen hundred
Yeah.
dollars a
No.
month, but
Just not gonna happen.
maybe we can find something in Fayetteville for $1,800 a
Right.
month. And we know rent is going to go up at least $100 every year.
Mhm.
At some point, you're not going to have anywhere to go. So we kind of have to start thinking, how is that you're going to keep your rent the same?
Right.
And then mortgage is probably the most stable way to keep your rent the same.
Yep.
You know, is every single year it's not going to be the same, but it's not going to go up $300. It's not going to
Right.
go up $400. a month. So it may be $20, $30, depending on what the taxes are doing, depending on what insurance is doing. But that's pretty much it. But
Yeah.
people, we need to be flexible. If you really want to live in Peachtree City and buy a $500,000 home, and you don't have any down payment, and you qualify for assistance, but it's still not enough, let's buy somewhere else where you can actually purchase,
Right.
gain equity. I mean, at some point in your life, you're going to be able to afford a bigger house
Right.
because you're going to have your source of income and you're going to have your equity in your home. And
Right.
like both ways need to work at the same time,
Yep.
you
And
know?
sometimes that just
So,
means that sacrifice on the front end is going to allow you
yeah,
that opportunity later.
absolutely.
So, and I think that that's what a lot of people need to kind of come to terms with, is that
Mm-hmm.
it's not just going to fall in your lap. And the fact that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't think ahead of, well, your rent's probably statistically going to go up at least $100 every year. So, how
Mm-hmm.
are we going to plan for that moving ahead? Because I know a lot of people who are very much in the, well, I signed my lease, and now they're coming back and saying a year later that we're going up $250, $300,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And that's on the low end. Like, I'm seeing a lot of people who are getting out of, multi-year leases,
Yeah.
and they got a quote good deal 2 years
Hmm.
ago, and now they're hearing numbers that are adding 5, 6, $700 to a
Mm-hmm.
new lease from what they were paying, and that's just like mind-blowing, but that's where the market's at. So
Yeah.
you always have to have a plan, whether or not you're going to rent or whether or not you're going to buy. There have to be sacrifices at some point. So it's always about like making friends with people like us who can help
Yeah.
guide you in the right directions, because at the end of the day, it's our job to help you, and it's our job, but it's not even just our job. It's what we want to do. And what brings us joy is helping people make the right choices. So, if that means that maybe it's not in the cards for you in the next 12 months, I know that both of us would be more than happy to still have that conversation with you and figure out what that plan looks like to
Absolutely.
help you get to wherever it is that you want to be. But people, it's a pride thing, but I hope that
It
through us
is. Yeah.
talking about it, that people at least will want to explore the conversation more and become more open to discussing these things, because finances are so taboo and people hate talking about them.
Yeah.
So,
People don't like math
no.
at all.
Mm,
They hate the math that makes sense.
yes, absolutely.
That's the kind of math they hate the most.
Right. When you're just like,
It's
eek, here's
yeah.
black and white. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, I'm just gonna buy when interest rates go down.
yeah.
That's one of the most common things.
Hmm.
I think that's like the worst mistake somebody can make.
I agree.
Just look at history.
Yeah.
Like we start selling more houses when the interest rates are low,
Right.
and then guess what happens?
Right. It's like
Offer
I'm,
gets
I'm
better.
trying to help educate people now that, yeah, when and if the interest rates do go down, are you ready for that? Because that's immediately going to throw us straight back into where we were
Hmm.
a couple years ago. And it's going to be,
Yeah.
everybody is throwing everything on the line, paying way over what things are worth,
Hmm.
emptying their savings accounts just to get a house. And you think it feels desperate right now. That's when it really gets, the Hunger Games level type of
Oh yeah.
stuff. So to me, I've always felt this way. If you are able to make the math work where the numbers are right now, do it, because there's always going to be a time, everything is cyclical. Like, things will
Hmm.
come back down at some point, and you will have the
Right.
opportunity to refinance at some point and take advantage of those numbers.
Right. Right. I remember last year, people financing. I remember people financing in non-traditional way, like paying 10% in interest rates, and they're all like, "Oh my gosh, it's like this is so high," but they still took that chance. And then 12 months later, we're seeing that interest rates are going down. Now they qualify for a traditional way, a conventional way, and then the interest rates maybe are not in the fours or in the fives, but now they're in the seven, three
Right.
percent less
That's
than
still a
what you
win.
purchased. Yeah, it actually saves you a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And guess what? Some of these people actually lost PMI because they got so much equity.
Right.
They started with 10% down, and then from last year to this year, they got another 10% of equity.
Yep.
And now I'm saving even more money
Right.
a month,
All because you
and
said
that's
yes when it didn't really
exactly.
feel right or make sense, but
Hmm.
honestly, that was the best choice.
Exactly. I've seen payments of like $2,500 going down to $1,700. And guess what? Now your rent is $2,200.
Mhm.
What you thought it was too expensive last year,
Mhm.
now you're paying less than that,
Yep.
and you own your home.
Yep. Exactly. So, you know, there's always going to be caveats and things that are going to work better for some people and not others, but I think at the end of the day we are all on the same page of long-term wealth, long-term generational change starts with owning a home. And
Yeah.
if that's, in your immediate future or in a 5-year plan or whatever that looks like for you, I know that all of the people who share this space on our podcast are more than willing to always help you figure out what that plan looks like. That goes for any guests we always have on or just the four of us. It's what we want to do. We want to help you figure out how to get to the point where you can take advantage of building generational wealth and generational change for your kids and your family and the history that you're going to leave behind. So, I don't know. I feel good about what we are building and what we're offering to people and hopefully creating a space where people feel better about having these conversations and not feeling shame around the fact that, well, I went and got coffee today, so
Yeah.
I'm never going to own a home, which is what we hear repeated over and over and over again, and the media is really good about pushing that too. But
Yeah.
making sure people understand that it doesn't have to be that way. You can still get coffee and still have a plan to own a home someday. You can still have your kids, grow up in the area that you
Yeah.
dream to raise them in and maybe not where
Mhm.
you're at right now. There's always a way. There's always going to be sacrifices, but if you're willing to make the
Yeah.
sacrifices and have those tough conversations, we're always here and willing to help you do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, I haven't had a single customer that regrets purchasing a home while rates were high.
Yep.
Yeah, they're pretty comfortable right now.
Right.
They're happy. I
Yeah.
mean, just because they see I bought my house for $400,000, now it's worth 450.
Hmm.
Just a few months after.
Right.
$50,000 has just happened to show up
Yeah.
in your house as equity, and you didn't do anything you just lived in your house.
Yep.
That's it.
You just woke up every day and kept
Yeah,
living.
exactly. Make your payment.
Yeah, exactly. Please pay your bills. You don't pay, you can't stay.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. So, as always, do what feels best for you. We are always here to help you make whatever the best choice or plan is that you need for your family. But we appreciate you tuning in and we would love for you to be part of the conversation that we are starting and helping make this a less taboo topic to talk about. So, if you want to share your thoughts or things that stood out to you, we would invite you to do that on our YouTube channel or on our socials. Instagram, Facebook. You can find us at the Home Tour Podcast on all things. So thanks for tuning in. And next week, we are going to be talking about debunking real estate myths and misconceptions.
Ooh,
So stay tuned. We'll talk to you
love
then.
that.
Bye.
Bye bye. Remember, love is patient.